Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Charlie Williams. I'm your friendly neighborhood elderly monster kid. So I won't say I grew up with Joe Bob Briggs, but I was a young man around Joe Bob Briggs. On July 13th, 2018, there was a 24-hour horror movie marathon called The Last Drive-In. And it was scheduled to be a one-time event. It was to be broadcast on Shudder. It was to be Joe Bob Briggs' farewell. This was going to be the last drive-in. But the response from the viewers was so overwhelming that Shudder's servers actually crashed as their subscribers tried to access the streaming system. So the rest, of course, is history. Now it's nearing the end of its 4th season. After 36 episodes and 12 specials, we all know that the drive-in never dies. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you the two people that broke the internet. Joe Bob Briggs and Darcy. After a beautiful introduction was, I didn't hear a word of that. You remember that? Did you hear this one?
I heard the last part of it, yeah.
All right, good. Well, it's great to have you guys at Sinister Creature Con together. And, yeah, let's switch those. I'm sure nobody can tell you apart. And Darcy, I found out, which I didn't know, that we wouldn't even be here if it hadn't been for you. So I really want to start off with that story where you were just going to a book signing, and this is one of Joe Bob's
Why don't you tell us?
projects. Well, I want to hear it from both perspectives. So.
I don't even know where to start. He was my hero. I always wondered what happened to him. I found out through social that John Bloom, his friend, is what he said, was having a book signing in, was it Sacramento?
Mountain View, California.
Okay. And I was in LA, and I'm like, that's close enough for me. So I got dressed in like a male girl outfit, and I was like, can we go to like the Joe Bob Con, is what I kind of thought. But it was like this really fancy science book meeting, and I was really insane, but he was very nice about it, because everybody else was all like in glasses and serious, and I wasn't.
Sure.
So we became friends that way, and I kept saying constantly, just, we need you back, do anything, do a podcast, do YouTube, do anything. And he wouldn't listen, he was very stubborn. He kept thinking we didn't need him anymore because we have Google. So like, what's his purpose? So I had to keep feeding him to let him know that we needed him. But at the same time, the person that became our producer was trying to, like, if we find somebody to match, would you do it again? So it's just this kind of this, at the same time kind of thing, because when they did find Shudder, he said, do you really think I should do this? Do you really think there's a point? Whatever. And here we are now.
Yeah, well, I wrote a book on satellites. And so she came to the book signing for the satellite book. And so there were all these Silicon Valley people there. Mountain View, California, that's where Google is and where the Pentagon has a big, actually I was there to speak to the Pentagon people. And while I was there, I did a book signing at the local bookstore on the main street of Mountain View. So there are all these science nerds and engineers who were at the signing. And she walks into the back of the room where I was doing the reading in the mail girl outfit. And so I don't think anybody else in the room knew that I was Joe Bob Briggs. And so
I thought everybody knew.
It was a completely different thing. So yeah, I noticed you. And then when it came time to do the Shudder marathon, I called her up because it's like, you've already got the costume. We don't have any money. You want to be the mail girl? I mean, that's really.
Literally what you said.
Well, it's like we didn't have we said they wanted me to do the same show that I did on MonsterVision, which I actually thought was stupid at the time. For two reasons. One, you should never repeat TV. That's what every agent, manager, producer will tell you. Never repeat TV. TV always has to be new. And so I said, we can't do the exact same show. They said, yeah, that's what we want. We want the exact same show. And then they said, it's a streaming service, but we're going to interrupt the movie several times. And we're going to have commercial breaks, even though we have no commercials. And I said, that's going to piss people off. You cannot do that. And they said, no, we're going to do that. Because I had been at a premium cable station, the movie channel, and we did not interrupt the movie. That was a sacred promise to the viewer. That's why you paid the $10 a month, so that nobody would interrupt the movie.
I never thought about why you did that before. Anyway.
Well, I mean, we were the 4th premium channel. I mean, everybody had HBO. You paid $10 a month for HBO, and then if you wanted a second one, if you just needed more movies, you got Showtime, and that was also $10 a month. And then if you were such a nut that you still needed more premium services, you got Cinemax, and that was $10 a month. And then if you still wanted more, maybe you would pay another $10 for the movie channel. That's how low on the premium channel protocol we were. But we still didn't break the sacred vow that you make to the viewer that you never interrupt the movie. And so, when they said they want to interrupt the movie, I was like, okay, this is going downhill fast. We're doing an old format. We're interrupting the movie, and that's what we did for the marathon. And they wanted, and originally we didn't have any money, and so we had enough money to show 2 movies. And so I said, we can't do this. That's not going to really, pay off with anything. We have to do a marathon, or nobody's going to notice it. Mm-hmm. Originally, I wanted to do a 54-hour Labor Day. I wanted to do a Labor Day marathon, just like Jerry Lewis, stay up all night and get all disheveled and everything. That was the concept for the thing. And Shudder told us they didn't have any money. At first they approved it, and then they changed their mind. They said, we don't have any money for that. And so they said, we have $30,000. One of the executives said, I have a fund here, we have $30,000. What can you do with $30,000? And I asked the producer, what can we do with $30,000? He said, 2 movies, maybe 4 movies. And I said, well, it's not worth doing, And so we weren't going to do it. And that was on a Friday. On a Sunday, he called and said, everybody will work for free. And I said, well, fuck you. Now I have to do it. So we did it. With mostly volunteer or deferred payment people. I mean, we paid for the movies. We paid for what you have to pay for. And the reality show, the tattoo reality show was Ink Master. Ink Master has a studio. It's an old abandoned factory in a bad part of Newark, New Jersey, and where they do their shows. And they loaned us 1 room of their abandoned factory at no charge. So we went to the Ink Master abandoned factory studio in the wilds of Newark, New Jersey, to do that marathon, and with donated labor, and everything was just done totally on the cheap. And Yuki Nakamura, the art director, even though he's from Tokyo, was a big Western fan and had a lot of, he owns more bolo ties than I do. That's why we call him the Tokyo Cowboy. And he designed that set. That was, that 1 room set that was the only thing that we used in the whole marathon. And so that's how it happened. But the way the mail girl thing happened is I just
so
said,
off track too.
no, no. The way the mail girl thing happened is I just said we gotta have a mail girl if we're gonna repeat the format of the 1990s that nobody wants to see anymore. So I called Darcy, and you came and you said, yeah, I'll be the mail girl. Actually, the first time I said it, I don't think you believed me because you know, it was like 3 months later, it's like, okay, it's time to do the marathon. You're like, really? You were serious? We're really going to do that? and you know, do various men come up to you and say, do you want to be the mail girl? And you don't believe it? You know,
Do they offer work? Yeah.
And so you came and we started the whole thing. You know,
Good enough.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
We get it.
So I heard just like you had to convince Joe Bob, he had to convince
Yes,
you
actually, yeah.
that wasn't a
'Cause
role
I
that
was
you
like-
really were going after.
Like terrified. Like
Yeah.
I quit 18 times in the middle of that marathon, and I would get pushed out there. They'd tell me lines to say, and I'd just be like, and not say anything, and he would get so mad at me. What are you doing? You know you did. So, but he also like he would found me because we had to share the dressing room. So I was like crying in his dressing room, and he's like, just get out there, it's fine. Like I don't know, just super pep talks that he always gives me. So I'm like,
Well, the quote
again, fuck you.
The quote I had
I guess I
was-
got to do it.
I don't know if it's right, but the quote I had was, he said to you, get your ass out.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
That's what he says.
Well, Felissa Rose was there too. She was
She
on
was
the
the-
first marathon and she helped.
I tried to get her to be the mail girl. It's like mail girl. It makes sense.
Yeah, but you had a lot on your plate that first marathon. I can't even imagine because you're handling the live tweets, you're responding to people on
Not
air.
planned. It's just like everything went crazy, and I wanted people to know that they were still working on it, because I could see all the behind the scenes stuff, but I could see people being confused. And I'm like, I was relaying news, and that's how everyone just started finding each other. And so it was never a planned thing for it to be so socially active, but it happened, and then it's like, well, that's what we have to do now.
Sure.
Well, see, I didn't understand the whole break the internet thing anyway,
I know.
because,
He
you
was
know,
so mad.
because it's like, you know, because actually you told me, you said, nobody can watch the show because we broke the internet. I said, what do you mean? Nobody can watch the show because.
Did I say it like that?
All the, something like
I said,
that.
oh my
All-
God, nobody can watch the show.
Yeah, I know, like all the servers are down.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well that sucks. And you said, no, it's a good thing.
It
I
was
said, it's a good thing that
amazing.
nobody can watch the show. I'm actually kind of proud of the show, you know?
I was just so happy that people showed up. Like, we
Yeah.
had no idea. Like, I just hoped, like, if you guys love Joe Bob, he never got his final goodbye. So here's this group of fans trying to make sure he gets that. And people came and supported it, and it was just so beautiful. And I could show him. He never knew people cared. So I could show him all the tweets of like, oh my God, and all the stories about what he meant to people. And he didn't care about any of that.
But anyway, they were getting, it also crashed, AMC Networks owns a lot of stuff, and it's all linked together. And so it also crashed the IFC channel, Sundance channel.
So how soon after that did people at Shudder come to you and say, hey, this isn't a one and done. We want this to be more than that.
Actually, before that night was over.
I can imagine
It was
from
just
the
crazy,
response.
because we really thought it was a one-time thing, and we thought Shudder honestly didn't like us very much for reasons. And then in the middle of it, because it was going so well, we're like, perhaps we should have a talk. Like, and it's like, what? Like, Joe Bob's fucking back now. Like, that's insane. It was so happy to me, and he's still back on.
So,
Well, we're glad
He
it
didn't
happened
have
that
us.
way.
well, I think people watched the show later. I think people, actually originally we were gonna wait 2 weeks before we put the show online. So, you know, make people wait and
They were really
Shudder-
mad, so they said.
Shudder said, no. As soon as it's over, we're gonna run, you know, as soon as it's over, we're gonna run it again. Because people are so mad, people are so frustrated and upset. And really, I looked at the emails later that I was personally getting, and it was like, Joe Bob, I have, you know, I have 40 people in the basement of my apartment building in Hell's Kitchen and 5 kegs of beer. What do I do? And
That's the stuff I would respond to.
yeah, and so, yeah, I said, yeah, well, okay, we need to show it again so we can like make it up to everybody.
Are you surprised to be in the 4th season? Each one of you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I have another question for you that I want to ask before, you know, it gets too far along in the interview, and that is that the last time you were here, they had just announced that the 2nd season was coming out on Shudder. Do you have any news about a 5th season that you'd like to share with us?
Any news about?
Well, you're coming to the end of the 4th season. Is there going to be a 5th season?
I don't know, and every time I talk about stuff that they tell me, I get in trouble. And so I've learned that as soon as I say something at a convention like this, you know, I tend to think, hey, we're all friends.
Sure.
And then I don't realize that it instantly, people are instantly aware of it in Cologne, Germany. Whatever I say, so I no longer say what they tell me.
Okay, we'll just keep our fingers crossed and hope that there is a 5th season. Darcy, when did you become a horror fan? I mean, when did you start, and when did you start watching Joe Bob?
Why do you make me talk so much? Horror fan as long as I can remember, really, because my dad was all about it, and I tried to sneak in and kind of watch some of it.
Yeah.
The first one I fully watched all the way through, and it didn't scare me. Like, I finally got through it, felt brave, was Final Chapter. So that's why it's like forever my favorite. From there, it's just like, you know.
Yeah.
So that began my horror journey. Joe Bob, like, why are you giving me this look? I feel like I'm gonna say something wrong.
Just waiting to see what you're gonna say.
I had, as he's made me talk about so many times, had like an abusive relationship, whatever. I wasn't allowed to go anywhere. And I found this dude that was there every Saturday night showing amazing movies. It was kind of hot, let's be real. So it's like, I was in every Saturday night from like the first time I saw on MonsterVision. So.
You know, I think that explains a lot about your popularity too, is the fact that we feel so comfortable with you, like you're this crazy uncle who you like to watch horror movies with, and we wish we could drink beer with you. And so anyway, that's great. Joe Bob, you attended Vanderbilt on a sports writing scholarship. I've talked to you about this before. A lot of people don't know that your foundation is writing. And Darcy was talking about the scientific book that you wrote. But you've written investigative pieces that have been, you know, dramatized. Recently, Cindy on Hulu. I don't know if anybody has seen
Candy,
that, but if you
actually.
haven't,
Candy.
I'm sorry.
No, it's
Candy.
totally fine.
Candy on Hulu, which is the story of Candy Robertson, who was involved in a murder in Texas, and I highly recommend it. But he's also been nominated for a Pulitzer Prize for his investigative work. So there's a lot of layers to Joe Bob Briggs. But anyway, I was going to ask you this transition from sports writing to drive-in movies. How does that?
I mean, there's
does
no
it
real
happen?
transition. When I was growing up in Little Rock, Arkansas, I was a paper boy, and I was so into like making money doing that like if you delivered the morning paper, you weren't supposed to deliver the afternoon paper. There were non-compete clauses in the paper boy contract. Paper boy is essentially a form of child abuse. They make you buy the papers. You know, the newspaper makes the child buy the papers and then try to collect the money from the people you deliver the papers to. So the newspaper gets all its money, whether the child does or not. And so if anybody leaves town without paying or whatever, and they tell you we're teaching you to be an entrepreneur. That's how they get you to do it. And so I was so into it that I did the morning paper and the afternoon paper. And then I found out which was against the policies of both papers. And then I found out that the afternoon paper, which was the shittier of the two papers, was they hired apprentice copy boys. And I said, well, I want to do that too. And so I got a job in the sports department of the Arkansas Democrat, and I would go down there before school, and like at 5 o'clock in the morning, and write whatever they told me to write. This was in the era when newspapers, if you worked at a newspaper, first of all, you didn't put bylines on the articles. They were all anonymous articles. But you were expected to write 10 or 15 of them a day. And so they call it a copy boy. It wasn't a copy boy, it was free writing, you know. And so so I learned to write really by working in the sports department of the Arkansas Democrat. I would go in at 5 o'clock and I would write 8 or 10 articles, often stealing the article from the other paper because we didn't have the resources of the other paper. So there was an art form whereby you take the article that the other paper has reported and you report it also in a way that does not reveal that you just stole all the facts in that article and put them in your article. And so I would do that, especially on Saturday night, because we came out in the morning, and so we weren't able to steal from the other paper because both papers came out on Sunday morning. And so I would listen to the baseball game on the radio, and the guy would be describing the minor league baseball game, and I would act like I was actually in Shreveport reporting the game. And I learned all these different writing techniques doing this kind of sneaky stuff that we used to do. And actually, I found out later the radio guy, he wasn't in Shreveport either. He was reading it off of a ticker tape. And so nobody knows what actually happened in the ball game. We just knew the final score and everything else was made up. Anyway, so I was in this world, kind of, you ever seen the movie The Front Page?
Yeah.
It was just like The Front Page, you know, it was just like, you know, and it became, you know, you're the guy who writes the cutesy features. That's what I became known for. You're the guy who writes the cutesy features. And so I learned to do that, and that's how I ended up with the sports writing scholarship to Vanderbilt, and I just fell in love with the English department at Vanderbilt. It was very old school. This is when Vanderbilt was very old school. It's very international now. At the time, it was the Old South. It was basically men. We didn't even have. We probably had maybe 20% female student body, and it was the Old South school, and but they had these English department professors that were amazing, and I thought I was a hotshot writer by the time I got to Vanderbilt, but then they showed me different, and so that was so. My point is, I never had a plan. I just went to the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing.
So did you always have an interest in horror?
Yeah, so I did. I would. My parents were movie fans, and would go to the drive-in all the time, with me and my sisters in the back seat. And we would always try to stay up until the second movie, because the second movie was the adult movie, and we never made it. You know, my sisters definitely never made it. I occasionally would make it to the first reel of the second movie.
Okay. Hey, Darcy, you were talking about this old formula that you didn't want to do again with the last drive-in, but you added something new to it because you started doing a cosplay. And the cosplay, I think, has added this extra dimension. It's a lot of fun on the show. When did you first get interested in cosplay?
Gosh, like forever. Like, there's pictures of me as a baby just in costumes all the time.
Really?
And I go to a lot of like retro screenings in LA, and when I really feel strongly about the movie, I dress up for it. And so when we do Mail Girl, he of course just wanted me to wear boobs and a skirt, whatever. And I was like, if I really, really love the movie, can I please dress up? So that's kind of how that happened. It wasn't super planned. I was like, that's kind of, I feel much more comfortable like that than in like male girl stuff.
I remember at that marathon, you brought like 3 trunks
Dude,
full
okay.
of clothes.
So he said yes, but he's like, can you do every single movie in 3 days? I'm like, okay, challenge accepted. So I like just tried to throw stuff together, and I'm not organized. So I had everything in like Ralph's bags, like scattered everywhere. It was quite the mess. But I was like, if that's what it takes to do cosplay, then I will figure it out.
Joe Bob, your style is so relaxed. Like I said before, I think that's what makes us feel comfortable and kind of draws us in. That everything really, I think I'm a good judge of what I watch on TV, and everything to me seemed improvised and just conversational. So, but you being a writer, you actually write everything down and use a teleprompter, and I've seen things online where people are going, no, he doesn't use a teleprompter, it's all off the top of his head. So what is the preparation?
It's a mixture of both. I depart from what I've planned to say, but
That's hard to believe.
But I like to know where I'm going. You know, I like to
Yeah.
know what I'm going to say, what I'm going to talk about. I don't like to just wing it. You know, sometimes people ask me to be on shows where they just wing it, especially podcasts. Podcasts are like, we'll just wing it. It's like, I don't want to wing it. I want to, know we're going to deliver something to the audience.
I feel like he has to have structure in some way, or he will just be gone.
I'll depart. I make
So
the
it's like-
structure and then I depart
like,
from the
that's
structure.
part of why I have to keep telling him, like get back to the thing, because it's like you're going further and further. You want to say this now.
Are you doing that on camera, or are
Oh,
you doing
yeah.
it off camera? I know you do
But-
some of it on camera.
Yeah, constantly. Hey.
Well, that's interesting, because my next question was going to be, what's it like watching Joe Bob go off on a rant? And I mean,
It's like, it's amazing, but also scary. I'm like, please don't say anything bad. Like, I'm constantly like, be careful, be careful, be careful. And also kind of mentally, like, because they will tell me, it's like, he can't go over however many minutes. You have to, like, pay attention to that and go interrupt him. I'm like, I don't want to interrupt him, but I have to.
Well, I mean, I'll give you an example. One time I wrote a column. Sometimes I'll write a column and then I'll do it later as a rant. And so I had written this column about do you remember the Gillette woke commercial?
Yeah.
Toxic as good as,
Yes.
what's their slogan? As good as
Best a man can get.
The best a man can get. And of course, I always thought that meant the best shave a man can get. And then suddenly, no, it means the best man you can be in their commercial. And they have all this stuff in there about, how you're supposed to behave. And so, so I did this sort of deconstruction of the commercial as a column. And I told my director, Austin Jennings, I said, I want to do it as a rant on air. And I said, I'll do it on the night of Exorcist 3 because all the smart people watch on the night of Exorcist 3. They get all the references. All the people into dense Catholic theology will be watching Exorcist 3. And so he's like, that's a pretty dense, long column that you wrote. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to do it. And so actually, there was some kind of time constraint,
Oh my God.
we
yeah.
only have,
You have to get out here, or you're getting
you
cut
gotta
off.
finish this in, it was something like, you gotta finish this in 19 minutes, and I showed him the copy, how long is that?
Like a
He says,
phone.
he says, that's 17 and a half minutes, and I said, okay, well, let's start then, let's go. Start, and so you may have noticed if you saw that particular one, I was talking kind of fast. So that one was not, I was not going to depart very much from what I had written in that column because I didn't have time. If I wasted 90 seconds, then the whole thing was going to fall apart. So it depends on what I'm doing. That's a long
Once
answer.
again, a long answer.
Long answer for an easy question.
I do remember one Thanksgiving rant that went on for quite a while. And by the
The
time
rant about the history of
Thanksgiving.
The history of Thanksgiving.
And by the time it was over, I didn't want to celebrate Thanksgiving.
Yeah, because it was a history of all the different people that had killed other people in the name of Thanksgiving. Yeah.
And I was thinking, what a great history lesson. It should be taught in high schools or something. Would you please explain to me what Felissa Rose's role is on the show?
Well, first of all,
Explain the origins.
Felissa was on the very first show because we showed Sleepaway Camp, and she was a remarkably good interview because I kept asking her questions about, backstage at the movies she works on, and she kept giving these remarkably honest answers, and so this was an honest question that I asked her in the course of interviewing her about Sleepaway Camp. I said, that last shot of you with the dick, it's a deformed dick, right? It's a mangled dick. And she says, no, it's not a mangled dick. And I said, it's like, because that speedboat accident in the first scene, they don't show what happened really, but I think like the dick got mangled, and that's why you were raised as a girl. I was interpreting the movie because I was thinking, why did they raise her as a girl? They don't really explain.
Let's not leave out the part that you and I thought about this for about 3 weeks going in.
Yeah.
On a dick and be like,
Okay.
this is a normal dick.
Well,
Joe Bob. What is wrong with you?
Well, I'm going to ask Melissa.
Exactly. She had to
It didn't
break
look
the
like a
tie.
normal dick to me. And so Melissa says it was a normal dick, and she named the guy who
you
his,
now traumatized
it was
forever.
his dick.
It's a lovely dick.
And I said, well, wouldn't it make sense that there was this speedboat accident at the beginning? Why would you raise a boy as a girl unless there was something wrong with their dick? and she says, no, that's not at all what it was. It's just that my crazy aunt,
I think that would have been a really cool way to take it, but they didn't.
Okay. So anyway, okay, and so I said something like, okay, Felissa, you're the mangled dick expert. And so she started calling herself the mangled dick expert. And so every time we showed a dick in a movie, I would bring her back as the mangled dick expert. I mean, we showed that movie Dead or Alive, and this is also an issue with Darcy, is that they never show dicks. They show boobs, but they never show dicks. And they never go full frontal with men, but they go full frontal with women. And so, in fact, tell me your theory of I'll tell you.
Okay, thanks.
I said, it's not it's false equivalent. They do show men with their shirts off. And she said, well, that's not the same. I said, well, what would be the same? And she says, the same would be showing a man's dick that's not hard. A man's dick in its natural state. And I said, okay, I buy that. So, in other words, so she's making an equivalence between female boobs and a limp dick. And I said, okay, I get that, because,
That's a good theory. I stand by it.
you stand by that theory. Okay, so we started noticing when a filmmaker would show a limp dick, and I thought we'll call attention to this by having Felissa Rose come back on. We'll call her Felissa Rose and have her comment on the dick. So that was the whole joke.
And some are super mangled, like street trash,
and actually, then we started discovering there are a lot of mangled dicks in the movie. We weren't even thinking of it before.
I was like, we're never gonna get to use her, and I was like, dang, like she's here every week.
Well, on a similar note, Darcy, I've read that you consider yourself the feminist version of the male girl. And I can see that because you have a lot more input, it seems, in terms of the movie and keeping
I
Joe
don't-
Bob reined in and.
I don't know. If I was saying that, it seems a little bit too full of myself. So I just, yeah, I had to fight. He really wanted me to be exactly what he did before. Like, literally just come out and be like,
Yeah.
and oh my God, sex stuff and whatever. And I was just like, I will try, but it felt so unnatural to not say anything back to him about some of the shit he was doing.
Well, some of your looks say it too.
So that's the best I could do, and he finally just.
No, conflict is good.
But you wanted a different kind of conflict, and so it just kind of all became more real, I guess. You know, it's just like what I would really say, and so that's why it kind of expanded, because it's just really just our stuff.
Okay, I do want to give the audience a chance to ask a few questions before we wind it up. So, this young Joe Bob in the front row, who happens to be my grandson, I promised him. I'm sorry, nepotism, you know. Stand up with your hat on and ask the question.
Rock the hat, it's cool.
Rock the hat.
Yeah.
My question is, which of the Hammer horror films would you like to have on the last drive-in?
All of them. But, well, I like I mean, I could name the natural ones that you would name would be like the Quatermass experiment, or Curse of Frankenstein,
Yeah.
or I like the fur bikini movies of the
You
60s,
know.
like She and 1 Million Years BC, and I like the lesbian vampires of the early 70s. So I mean, there's a lot of choices. You know, Hammer existed from the 30s to the late 80s. You don't really associate those early Hammer films. You don't really call those Hammer films, but they made films for 50 years. But the ones we know them for are the ones that have that lurid color, and so I would love to show any of those. I don't know why we haven't shown those. I would assume it's because whoever has the rights to them now, you know, has some reason for using them somewhere else.
Hey, any other questions? Yes, in the front row, right here.
I was thinking during the Fright Night panel, like a horror host fighting real life monsters. And have you guys ever thought about doing like Darcy and Joe Bob meet Frankenhooker or something, like a movie where you guys
We
fight?
have now.
No. I'm not a big fan of acting. I like actors, and I admire actors, but I'm not a big. When I'm on a movie set, I get bored to tears. You're waiting around. And, you know, you need another job. I need another job on the set. Give me something else to do, other than just wait around and say 3 lines, and then okay, that's all for today. Then tomorrow say 3 more lines. You know, so that's what movies are. It's like you're waiting around for lighting and all the stuff that busy people are doing, but you're just sitting around.
But you were so great in Casino. Robert De Niro, and you hold your own. You know, you hold your own in that scene. It's such a pivotal scene.
Well, for those, I think there were 3 scenes maybe. For those 3 scenes, I was there a month.
Oh,
And which is good because the residuals are based on how many days you work. Yeah, that was great. But actually, you know, the more valuable thing for me of that experience was talking to Scorsese, because he had all these times when he had nothing to do. He's worked with these crews for so long that they know what to do without him telling them what to do. And so a lot of times he's just waiting around for them to finish the lighting, finish the camera set, the camera moves, finish everything that they've already talked about. And so he's a nervous type of guy, and he's walking around and he has nobody to talk to. So I talked to him. And so that was actually the most memorable thing is conversations with Scorsese while he was waiting on the setups.
Well, guys, we've enjoyed so much talking to you, and we're going to have to wrap it up. And you're just a dynamite combination, and I know, Darcy, at some point you thought, well, I'm not adding much to the show. But now, if you were going to watch The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob, it wouldn't be the same show without Darcy. So we're so happy. Joe Bob, the drive-in never dies.
Look,